Back when I was in high school, we used to get these study periods during which we got to sit about in the school library for an hour instead of going to actual classes. The purpose, as the name suggests, was for us to do some independent study. What of course we all actually did was sit at the school computers, turn the monitors away from the librarian's line of sight, and play free flash games. Now way back then, if one of us had come across rainbows, toilets and unicorns on one of our favourite sites, I'm quite sure it would have blown our tiny minds and taken the whole school by storm. Unfortunately, Rainbows, Toilets and Unicorns is not a free flash game, nor is the year 1999, and console games in 2020 get judged by very different standards. Standards Rainbows, Toilets and Unicorns falls well short of matching. Before we get too negative, however, there are a couple of things I want to make clear. Firstly, I did, for a short while, find Rainbows, Toilets and Unicorns both amusing and entertaining. Secondly, when in about 30 seconds time I start tearing it apart as a shmup, I do so purely because that is what my reviews and channel are all about. I don't, however, believe it was the developer's intention to create a quality shmup, as much as it was to create something irreverent and fun, and in that second aspect they have at least partially succeeded. As a shmup, however, as a shmup being held up in comparison to the modern and retro classics the Switch is knee deep in, I'm afraid to say that Rainbows, Toilets and Unicorns is of virtually no worth whatsoever. The game starts with a short animation of a man eating a rainbow ice cream, then running to a bathroom through whose roof moments later he then bursts, shitting a continuous stream of rainbows. After clicking start, you are then thrown straight into the action, controlling our terrified man clinging desperately to his throne through 5 worlds themed around topics such as politics, social media and religion, each world consisting of 5 stages and 3 unique bosses. There is no tutorial or even an explanation of controls, but you won't need any, because all you need to know is that A fires a straight shot and that B detonates a screen-clearing rainbow bomb. The bomb can only be unleashed after shooting a certain amount of bad guys. The bad guys appear at the top of the screen and then descend in straight lines to the bottom. All of them. About 1 in 5 maybe fire single shots which also descend in straight lines to the bottom of the screen. Dispatching them causes them to drop gems which can be swept up and increase your shot power up to a maximum of 8. There are 3 power-ups, 2 of them, a magnet for gems and a double shot, are temporarily timed power-ups, and the other one, a shield, stays with you until you take a hit. Since you only have 1 life, and there is no way to gain more, the shield is far and away the most important power. In fact, it's probably the most important mechanic in the whole game. Unfortunately, the power-ups seem to be generated randomly, meaning you could end up with 3 shields on screen all at once, or you may need to dodge your way through long minutes of the game's trickiest moments without seeing a single one. And dodging, by the way, won't be easy due to the wildly out of control pace at which your character moves, or jerks might be a better word, which renders finite dodging an impossibility. Not that that matters too much for 90% of the game, as simply holding down fire and weaving side to side ought to be enough to keep you alive through all but a few of the boss battles. I'm afraid it doesn't matter how funny it may be to see priests and Buddhas and social media influencers raining down the screen, when all they ever do is rain down in literal straight lines from World 1 Stage 1 to World 5 Stage 5. It is only going to be a matter of minutes before you start feeling seriously unengaged. Boss battles are at least more varied, but while in quickly spliced together footage the patterns that emanate from them may look like regular shmup fare, they are in fact nothing of the sort. The majority can be dodged simply by staying still directly in front of the boss, and those that can't are either child's play to avoid or, and this is usually only the case in the case of the last boss of each world, unfairly vicious. Since you only have that 1 life, if you don't get a handle on the patterns the very first time you see them, you'll be retracing your steps through the stages just to work out usually 1 single troublesome pattern in an otherwise insipid encounter. This isn't helped by the fact that retracing your way through World 5 is to all intents and purposes the same as retracing your way through World 1, just with different shapes falling down the screen in straight lines. Other than the final bosses, especially the final boss of the final world, there doesn't seem to be any real difficulty progression. Weirdly, the time you're most likely to die is at the start of a world, when your powers are reset to 0. As you level up your weapon, your shot spread increases and increases, making the game easier and easier until, as mentioned, those end of world bosses. Visuals are the game's obvious strong point, and they are vibrant, cheerful, and on occasion amusing. They're almost entirely static though, and really are highly reminiscent of cheap 90s flash game fare. They're also for the most part clear, and there's little interference from the matching backgrounds. Enemy shots, however, can get hidden beneath gems, and the bomb meter in the bottom corner can all too often obstruct a significant area of the screen. Now this problem is especially weird since the bomb meter does actually have a fade effect when your character's underneath it, but it remains too opaque, and you really will need to learn to simply avoid that rather important part of the screen. In terms of options, there are none to speak of. There's also no real score, with just enemies killed and gems collected being displayed at the end of a world. But these are not even stored locally, so unless you have a photographic memory, who cares? It's not like the gems do anything, and once you've seen the enemies each stage contains once, there is no incentive to replay worlds at all. The developers have stated they will add a Tate mode in an update, something which will be very welcome, but honestly, while Tate mode with your flip grip is always cool, it's not going to improve the game itself. I do want to reiterate, I had an enjoyable time with Rainbows, Toilets and Unicorns, but only for about 30 minutes. By that point I'd seen all the worlds and been quite amused, but I'd also realised how astonishingly restricted the gameplay was, and begun to find those final boss battles frustrating impediments rather than irreverent diversions. Now if this were a free Flash game, or even if it were a $1.99 offering on the eShop, I'd recommend it to anyone at a loose end and who wanted a silly half hour of fun. At the same or a similar price to an individual Psycho game or many of the quality indie shmups we have available, it is impossible to recommend, particularly to shmup fans who will find very little to keep them interested beyond the occasional funny boss, most of whom you can see in the game's trailer anyway. At its current price, I'm afraid this is scandalously overpriced, and I'd rate it a 4 out of 10, although if at some point in the future you see it at $1.99 or less, it may offer you a bit of light-hearted fun with which to pass a high school study hour. Or, well, maybe half of one. Thanks to Fantastico Studio for my copy of the game, and thanks to you for watching. See you next time. Cheers.